The blood coagulation system or the blood clotting system is classically divided into the intrinsic pathway and the extrinsic pathway. There is also a common pathway. Intrinsic pathway does not mean that it occurs inside the body or the blood, and extrinsic pathway does not mean that it occurs outside the body or blood. When blood comes in the contact with the injured endothelial cells, exposed subendothelial collagen, activated platelets or any other endothelial surface such as artificial surface like glasses or a test tube in the lab test, it leads to the coagulation through a coagulation factor 12, also called the contact factor. That's why it is called the intrinsic pathway, because all the necessary factors required for the coagulation are already present in the blood. On the other hand, when endothelial injury or tissue injury occurs, the surrounding cell outside the blood vessel like subendothelial tissue or tissue cells from the organ release a substance called the tissue factor. Tissue factor is released from tissue, that's why it is known as tissue factor. Tissue factor is also known as tissue thromboplastin or factor 3. This tissue factor normally does not present in the blood and it leads to the coagulation. That's why extrinsic pathway is called the extrinsic pathway. Because the tissue factor that triggers the extrinsic coagulation pathway, it comes from the outside the blood, from the external tissue. So, intrinsic pathway begins without any tissue factor. Intrinsic pathway starts with the contact factor, which is factor 12, already present in the blood, while the extrinsic pathway starts only when tissue factor is released. Regardless of intrinsic pathway or extrinsic pathway, the end result is the same. The conversion of soluble fibrinogen into the insoluble fibrin strand. So, with this basic understanding, let's explore what actually happened in the intrinsic and the extrinsic coagulation pathway in depth.